Okay, I want to talk through the task sheet. Okay, this is fairly important. You've both got the same draft check date of the 11th of May, and there's a list of things you've got to have done in there. And the due dates, year 12s, you guys are going first. I think it better balances the term because before the year 11s present on the 27th of May, we'll actually be back into learning the stuff we need for the exam. So I think it'll balance out a little bit better there. Year 11s, you won't be too badly disadvantaged, and of course you have a shorter presentation to kind of remember. So that was my thinking behind doing that. It's a research task and you have to do a multimodal presentation. Really important thing with multimodal is more than one thing has to significantly contribute. You can't just do slides and a speech. You have to think about something else that you can add to make the experience better for us. All of the 3 dimensions are assessed. You've got a criteria sheet. I reckon really good students get in the habit of marking their own work. So have a look at that. Here's the scenario. You've recently been hired as a human resource manager of a company, and you can choose the company you're working for. It is a real company. You've got to be smart with this decision. It's got to be a company that's got plenty of information about it, and it's got to be a company that you can make some good recommendations about. So one of the things is if you go to one of the companies with famous human resource management strategies like Flight Centre or Google, it might be hard to make recommendations for companies that are going so well. It could even be easier to try and find one where there's been a lot of friction. For example, Qantas would be an example. You might also think you've got to use both secondary and primary research methods. If you know someone in the company, that's a great way of getting primary information. You can talk to them about the company itself. So keep that in mind as you think about which company you're choosing. So you've been asked to give a presentation to the board of directors. That means the absolute bosses. Boards sit over most companies and structures, including this school, and they have considerable power. The focus is on evaluating the current human resource management strategy of the company and making and justifying recommendations for improvement. How can you improve what's happening in this company? Now, the first thing I've said is knowing and understanding business management. The first criteria. These are your 3 criteria that I've written these to. The first one says, describe the business situation and explain the current human resource management processes and strategies. So think about what the company is. Tell us about what the important information is. We want to be concise with this. And what are they currently doing with their human resource management? Secondly, find this information and organise it. So the classic organisational tool we use in business management is the SWOT analysis. But add that to something else. We just looked at 2 stakeholder tools this morning, except Phoebe, and those who weren't here. But they're on sector, right? So we'll put them up. Make sure you guys have a look at other tools you've used. Some people did a great job with stakeholder analysis in the last exam. So have a think about how you can select and organise that information, including graphs and so on. Use your knowledge about the company and the research that you do. Identify 3 the most important human resource management issues with the company. What are the big issues with those companies? And interpret the current strategies, the current situation to analyse these issues. What's happening at the moment and why is it a problem? So that's going to meet that criteria there. Lastly, evaluating and communicating management strategies. Propose and evaluate 2 human resource management theories that could be implemented by the business. So theory, we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs this afternoon. That's the sort of thing that a theory is. And decide how well they would work as human resource management, the follow criteria. The costs, the impact on staff motivation and satisfaction, the impact on profitability, the impact on workplace health and safety, the impact on the innovation in the business, right? Are your employees coming up with really interesting ideas that are helping to improve the business? So use those criteria to evaluate 2 human resource management theories, and we're going to look at a lot of those theories. It's often good to try and go outside the coursework to find theories that really work. And that might be something you guys look at. And then you have to recommend one of these theories to be adopted as the management strategy. Justify your recommendation. Why have you chosen this theory to be used at the firm? Okay. And throughout, you're using business terms, concepts, and theories, and communicating, suited to the board of directors. Quite a formal presentation, right? You don't want to go in there and burp your first sentence because you think it's funny. This is a very, very serious presentation. We'll go with that. Now, you know the upload process. You should be more familiar with this. The draft, which is the full script, that's what I'm looking for the draft, and supporting materials by 12:01 a.m. And the final submission, you know you've got to update that. I imagine we will be able to present on those days because the days are in doubles. So we should be able to get through all the 11s in one day and all the 12s in another day. We should. Put through some common curriculum elements that are part of that. It's always good for you guys to note that you're doing these things that you assessed on at the end of year 12. And I'd love you guys to engage more with your marking standards. Mark your own work. Think about it, Think about, have I used relevant business management terms, concepts, and theories? How will I have done that? And talks about thorough and discerning, which means you don't just give us everything, you get the important things. I would suggest, the way I would be doing this, is I would be focusing on starting with describing the business as your first step, then looking for the analysis and the issues that come out of that, and making the recommendations as the third step. That's how I would be inclined to approach it. Does anyone have any answers that come to mind at this stage? In fact, maybe go with questions, and maybe I'll give you some answers. Ryan, you got an answer? 17?
No, I was thinking maybe a good idea is to first find out any problems and do an anonymous survey and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, those sort of processes would be really good. If you could get some of that firsthand, right, and we are allowed with some of the primary research to make some of that up. So I might let you, put together a survey, have some data and use that. Okay, so we will look at some processes that go with that as well. Yeah, but linked to that though, Ryan, I think the other thing you're tapping into there is, remember you've got to choose a business that has some problems that you can solve, really. If you're going to be making recommendations, you don't want one that's all perfect. Lewis.
Would a primary source include interviews and words said by employees?
Absolutely. Primary source, interviews, words said. Now, one source that some people have used in their time is, they're like online sources where people talk about companies. Sometimes they'll badmouth them a lot. I would count that as a primary source where you're getting information directly from people. Yes. So that's the primary, directly from. Secondary is research that you've done. So a secondary source might be the annual report of a business. The primary might be actually talking to the business. Very nice question, Lewis. Anyone got anything else that they've got here? Okay, that's what it is.